our ladies talking talking their shit. I
Oh, we're
just do.
live.
Yeah. Oh.
Oh, we're live? Oh
It's
my
like, yeah, they know
God.
what to expect.
Huh?
Okay. Thanks, Jackie, for the warning, by the way,
Well,
Jackie. That's a great job. Great warning.
that's
Oh
our producer,
no.
people.
It's all
Welcome to
good.
Red
Okay.
and Leftist Roundtable. I'm not sure exactly what episode it is. I think it's episode 15, something like that.
15,
Um,
16.
15, 16, whatever. Welcome. How is everybody doing today? I am JB Font. We today have Jackie is going to be our producer, so you don't see her on camera, but she's there. Her spirit's there. We also have Sabrina Salvati, Meg McPherson, RJ, and Nick today. And yeah, welcome.
How
What's
are
up,
you guys?
y'all?
No. Oh, did
I'm
anybody
doing.
tweet it out?
Yeah,
Oh,
I tweeted the link
No, but
out.
I can.
I'll retweet you
Awesome.
guys.
Mhm.
Okay, so I guess we can really get started.
Hey,
So,
Borschi
really wanted to-
Borschi.
Mhm.
Okay, so the first big story we can cover right now is Cornell West leaving Harvard. So I will share his article on the screen with everyone in a second, or actually, Jackie. I think I sent it to Jack. I sent it in the group chat for everyone, but I'll just share it.
I think
if
you can
Jackie
share
doesn't have
anywhere,
it.
right?
Yeah, I could share it anywhere.
Mhm.
Okay, so
That's why I like StreamYard.
yeah, so this is actually really important, and this is a really pretty big scathing article that letter that Cornell West wrote. So on his Twitter profile, I think everyone can see it, right?
You may want to lower the message.
Yeah, I'll read the actual thing first. So it says, "This is my candid letter of resignation to my Harvard dean. I try to tell the unvarnished truth about the decadence in our market-driven universities. Let us bear witness against this spiritual rot." So he is about to go off.
Mhm.
So in this article, it's very small print. So good thing I'm reading over this. So this is an article based on June 30th, 2021. It is now July 15th. So this is just came out about this letter. So he sent this earlier on. So it proceeds as follows. "I hope and pray you and your family are well. This summer is a scorcher. Here is my brief and candid letter of resignation. How sad is it to see our beloved Harvard Divinity School in such decline and decay? The disarray of a scattered curriculum, the disenchantment of talented yet deferential faculty, and the disorientation of precious students loom large. When I arrived 4 years ago with a salary less than what I received 15 years earlier, and with no tenure status after being a university professor at Harvard and Princeton, I hoped and prayed I could still end my career with some semblance of intellectual intensity and personal respect. How wrong was I? With a few glorious and glaring exceptions, the shadow of Jim Crow was cast in its new glittering form, expressed in a language of superficial diversity. All my courses were consumed under Afro-American religious studies, including those on existentialism, American democracy, and the conduct of life. No possible summer salary along the lowest increase possible every year. Yet I delivered 2 convocation addresses, 1 commencement speech in 4 years. I was promised a year sabbatical, but could only take 1 semester in practice, and to witness a faculty enthusiastically support a candidate for tenure, then timidly defer to a rejection based on the Harvard administration's hostility to the Palestinian cause was disgusting. We all knew the mendacious reasons given had nothing to do with academic standards. When my committee recommended a tenure review, also rejected by the Harvard administration, I knew my academic achievements and student teaching meant far less than the political prejudices. Even my good friends in the Afro-American and African Studies Department were paralyzed given their close relations to the administration. And after teaching extra courses, including 5 courses in 1 year, this silence continued. When the announcement of the death of my beloved mother appeared in the regular newsletter, I received 2 public replies. Parentheses, just as that my colleague, Dr. Jacqueline Ogla Cook Rivers, who received none when her blessed mother died. Any ordinary announcement about a lecture, award, or professional advancement receives about 20 replies. This kind of narcissistic academic professionalism, cowardly deference to the anti-Palestinian prejudices of the Harvard administration and indifference to my mother's death constitute an intellectual and spiritual bankruptcy of deep myths. In my case, a serious commitment to veritas requires resignation with precious memories, but absolutely no regrets. Cornell West. This is a scathing rebuke against Harvard University.
That's how you cuss somebody out without using a swear word.
Exactly. I agree 100%. So I'll leave this open to the panel. I really want everyone's thoughts on this Harvard letter. Since JB spoke first, JB, you have the floor.
Ah, damn. I just wanted to say that. He brought to light what Sabrina actually said on one of her shows, I think about a week ago, when she spoke about one of the professors who was denied tenure, and then she basically had to fight and go to litigation to get tenure, and then when she finally got it, she was like, I don't want it because it took all this to get it. And it shows that time after time, no matter what we do, as far as Black people, we try to get into the spaces which we think we're allowed, and then and they'll say that we're allowed to do it, but then at every single turn, no, you don't. No, we can't, because of this reason, because of that reason, because of this. And you cannot deny Dr. Cornell West tenure, and not, if you know who he is, you're like, that's the layup to give him tenure. It's a layup. So to deny somebody like him tenure, it just speaks to the white supremacy that is instilled in these for-profit institutions that are just now a detriment to proper education and to a modern society.
Perfectly well said, JB. Love those comments of yours. Let's get Megan here. Meg, what are your thoughts on this letter that and resignation that Cornell West sent to Harvard?
For one, he was being way too nice about it. Just to pick up that thread that JB left behind, that was Nicole Hannah Jones, who was the founder of the 1619 Project, who was denied tenure at University of North Carolina. And so, sucks for UNC, because now she and Ta-Nehisi Coates are now going to be founding members of the journalism school at, can't remember, I know it's one of the historically Black colleges, where I know I just saw it. Nicole Hannah Jones. Sorry. She and, let's see. What school was it? Howard, thank you. Yeah, because I was just looking it up and it didn't come up automatically. So now she and Ta-Nehisi Coates are going to be founding members of the journalism school at Howard University. So, so sad for UNC. And honestly, the ridiculousness that they refused to give Cornell West tenure when it was recommended, and that he had tenure at Harvard before. When he was at Harvard before, he had tenure. He was a full professor. So the fact that one of the things that was also true was that other professors who left Harvard and then came back to Harvard later on, they were automatically given their tenure back. So the fact that it was denied to Cornell West, of all people, is like, it was a slap in his face. Like, to deny Cornell West tenure is a slap in the face, particularly when he had tenure at Harvard before, he had tenure at Princeton, he had tenure at Yale. So what the hell is different now? What is so different now that you would deny him tenure? It's complete bullshit, and that's just, it's also a huge indictment also of the university system, because the tenure system is very much on the rocks right now. There are so few tenure track positions in academia at this point, just because of the way that the university system is set up. Like, they would much prefer to have a bunch of adjunct professors and pay them barely livable wages. Like, you have university professors who live in their cars. It is so bad. This is how our university system is right now. It is that bad that they are barely making it, that professors are living out of their cars. So to deny someone like Cornell West, who brings so much to your university, to do that to him, of all people, is disgusting. And Harvard, like, make them all public universities. I'll end it there. Make them all public universities. Make Harvard and Yale, they should be University of...
Oh no.
Did it happen again? If they're going to be, if these private institutions are going to be treating their professors like this, then just make them public. That way they're accountable.
Perfectly well said there, Meg. Let's get Sabrina in here. Sabby,
can I address something really quick? For somebody saying that, hold on. They said that.
No. Oh, yeah. Are we standing Coates and Jones? Is that the one?
Yeah. Just because they're a liberal, I don't care if they're conservative. The fact that they're being denied tenure or being treated wrongly in an institution, it does not matter where they stand politically. Wrong is wrong, and so we are going to call it out. That's all I'm going to say. Thank you.
Absolutely. 100%. Like, we don't have to stand them or agree with them in order to understand that what's being done to them is wrong.
Agreed.
Good. Well said.
Agreed on that.
Well said, JB.
Thanks, JB, on that. That was a good follow-up. Let's get Sabby in here. Sabby, what's your opinion on Dr. Cornell West's resignation letter? It was a pretty scathing letter. He laid out his entire truths based on his personal situation and how he feels it's important to let everyone else in the world know. So what are your initial thoughts on that?
Yeah, so I actually just posted a video about this. Some of you know I work in higher ed in the Boston area. I am very much familiar with Harvard and how things work there. And I'm just going to say something very blunt here, but it's the truth. And I've experienced this as well. Black people are not welcomed at these institutions. And I say that because I've seen it time and time again, the way that Black faculty, Black administrators are treated at these schools like Harvard, like Yale, like Princeton. We are put in those spots to basically be a token. They call it diversity, but they don't even know what diversity means. They think that because they have one Black faculty member that they have diversity in their department. And then that'll be the last person that they put forward for tenure or won't give tenure at all. So you have to understand how these institutions work. It's all about what the donors want. It's not about what the faculty want, the students want, what the administrators want. We have no power. The president of the university responds to the board of trustees. They respond to the donors. So in reference with Harvard, Harvard has a lot of corporate CEO donors. They also have a lot of donors that are politicians that are sitting right in the House of Representatives, that are sitting right in the Senate. We can't forget all the politicians that came from Harvard. You have Mike Bloomberg, who donates heavily to Harvard to the point where Mike Bloomberg has a program named after him at Harvard. And let's not forget, he ran for president. So what you got to understand is Cornell West had two things against him. Number one, he was Black faculty, so they were going to treat him some kind of way anyway. And number two, he came out in support of Palestine. Harvard does not support Palestine. Harvard backs Israel. They back Israel because their donors back Israel. This is what it is all about. It's all about what the donors want. And all it takes is for one of those donors to say, you know what? I don't like the message that's coming from one of your popular faculty members. So I don't think I'm going to renew my donation next time. That's all it takes. You don't even need a lot of them. You only need one of them to do it. I know donors that have donated millions of dollars to these schools here, you guys. You got to understand the power that they have. So we, the people who work at the university, we don't really have any power. It's all about the donors. And that reminds you of politics. It's the same thing. We go out and vote and we think we have that power because we're putting people into office. But we really don't have as much power as we think, because at the end of the day, the politicians respond to their donors, their corporate donors. Someone just told me earlier today, they were like, Jeffrey Epstein donated to Harvard. I knew he had donations to MIT. I didn't know he also had donations to Harvard. These people, it's all one big club. And for Cornell West, he's the type of person, you know, he's more radical, he's outspoken. And when you don't play their game, when you don't move the way that they want you to move, this is how they do you. So my advice to Black people thinking about working at these elite institutions, do not do it. You will not be valued. You will not be appreciated. I've been trying to leave this place for a long time. Like, you guys don't understand. COVID messed up a lot of things. Like, it's higher ed is not what I thought it would be, especially at these elite schools. And if you think that you're going to come in there, especially if you're Black and you want to make a difference and you think they're going to let you do it, you are sadly mistaken.
Very well said there. Thanks for the insight, Sabrina. What you said was very powerful about your own experience working in these type of institutions as well. I want to get Nick in here on the last one on the panel, because Cornell West is someone Nick admires. He is his personal hero. And I know this is probably personal for Nick, but at the same time, I understand he may have some great insight on his own politically about his understanding of the situation about Cornell West. So, Nick, I'm going to throw it to the panel to you, man. How do you feel about Cornell West having to resign from Harvard and not getting his tenure, and reading and listening to the scathing letter that he sent to Harvard among his resignation? So what are your thoughts on this entire situation with Professor Dr. Cornell West?
So Dr. Cornell West is one of the best thinkers of our time and Black leaders who actually speak truth to power. Now, I want you guys to examine exactly why this happened. This happened because Dr. Cornell West has been a staunch ally of the Palestinian people. So this is retaliation for Dr. Cornell West refusing to fall in line with mainstream political groupthink. And this is why people like Dr. Cornell West is so valuable, because how many people is willing to essentially tell everyone in the establishment, I don't care if you're upset with what I'm saying, you know what I'm saying is true, so I'm going to speak the truth to you. And this is also the same man who's willing, he does not have this elitism. Well, for example, he came on our show. He loves to talk to people and see what their ordinary problem is. So that allows him to connect to with everyday ordinary people even more. And I spoke about this on Hard Lens. This is what I've been telling people when I say that the United States is the most propagandized country. We are the most well-conditioned country, because Ivy League education does not mean you are inherently smart. Like, do you really believe that people like Alan Dershowitz are smart, right? Trump is Ivy League educated. Ron DeSantis is Ivy League educated. Do you guys really believe these people are smart? Ted Cruz. These people are not smart. They are well trained by the oligarchy and they master the propaganda of the oligarchy. That's what elite education can do with you. I had long sit-down conversations about foreign policy with Max Blumenthal, the amazing Ross Saw, who had a PhD in Middle Eastern history. And I promise you guys, if you sit me down with one of these imperialist oligarchs that had a Harvard education, I will school them. No question in my mind. These people are not intelligent. They master propaganda, and they continue to climb their ranks in terms of their career because they say whatever the establishment wants them to do. They learn the advanced theories on how to advance the oligarchy. For example, you have the American people that is trained, and this is what the Ivy League people push, to trust intelligence agencies. Democrats now they approve of the CIA more than Republicans do. How can anyone study the history of the CIA and have a positive opinion of the CIA? It's because of the Ivy League motherfuckers. These people are given a lot of clout and a lot of respect, and then they just repeat talking points that don't make sense. Like these same Ivy League people will be the same one who pushing the embargo on Cuba. So are they smart or are they masters of propaganda? Because that's what I think it is. See, great comment by David Williams. W. Bush, graduate from Yale. I can give you guys more examples, but I don't know these people's lives like that. I just know there's a ton of them. I would love to give you guys more examples. Leave some more comments if you have them. But it's over and over. I will see these people who are dumbasses. And they be like, he yelled valedictorian. I'm like, how? That doesn't make sense. That's why Dr. Cornell West was a gem, because he was one of a handful, a few people that came from Harvard and actually spoke the truth on these issues. There is no intellectual, there is no moral, or there's no legal basis to support the apartheid state in Israel. Meanwhile, everyone in Harvard and Yale and these people do. And Dr. Cornell West was punished for standing for Palestinian people. What does that say about elite academia? I'll leave that thought with you guys. Back to RJ.
Very well said there, man. You know, it's a shame what they've done to Cornell West. It takes a lot of guts for what Cornell West did, because this is like Cornell West has been many of these institutions since the 90s and early 2000s, putting in the work, educating young kids, and to be constantly disrespected, not only by the institution like that, it's completely crazy and completely ridiculous. And this is a common phenomenon. You see a lot among Black people. We put in our work, we do the time that the system requires us, and then right when we're supposed to get our benefits, they screw us. This exact same scenario happens to every Black family when it comes time to get a promotion, asking about for promotion or to get certain benefits, you get screwed. So this isn't a surprise for me. I'm happy that Cornell West moved on to a different venture. He's a professor at a different institution, different university. I can't remember the name right now, so I don't want to misspeak, but he's also has a podcast called The Tightrope by himself and his co-host, Trisha Rose. So you should check that out as well. But I salute Cornell West and for continuing to be a fighter and continue to be a hero for many people. So any last questions or comments for you guys at the panel before we switch topics?
One of the other things that may have also influenced what's going on with Cornell West in this way is also before he left the first time, he had a big blow up with Larry Summers. And we all know Larry Summers is, the economist who has worked for the likes of Barack Obama and is an advisor to Joe Biden, was also an advisor for Trump. So this is someone that would be very much against what Cornell West has to say, because he is very much a tool of the establishment. So when you're dealing with people like Larry Summers, yeah, they're not going to look too kindly on that.
Very well said, Nick.
So I want to explain something that explains the
before you say something, we have some super chats in chat. We have Bobby Rosoli. Thank you for the super chat. He says Fred Hampton leftist breathes fire. We have another super chat from Black in the Empire. He says that these institutions are breeding grounds for the empire. Thank you for the super chats. Thank you for the comments. We appreciate you. Thank you very much. And back to Nick.
Now, I talked about this before, but I knew about Dr. Cornell West, and this is not. Everyone learns about these people at different times, so that's not a big deal. But a lot of these people learned who he was during the Bernie campaign. But I just want to highlight the difference between Dr. Cornell West and elite academia by telling you how I kind of got introduced with him. Michael Eric Dyson is another prominent Black intellectual. I'm looking up his, I don't know these people's background. I think he's Princeton. I'm looking it up now. I'm looking at his education background, but he's pretty well respected Black academic. And what Michael Eric Dyson did, especially when I was a little bit more liberal minded, I was impressed with him at first. But then as I got more radicalized, I'm shifted to the left, I realized what he was doing. So Michael Eric Dyson, because he's a very smart man, he will accurately depict the struggle in the Black community. If you hear him speak, he talks about it really well. He talks about the police state. He talks about Black income inequality, all this stuff. But then what's his conclusion? Michael Eric, his conclusion, so we have all these problems in the Black community. He does a great job communicating that. And then he would say, this is why we should vote for Democrats. This is the trap that elite academia wants you to fall into. Dr. Cornell West said no. So I became aware of Dr. Cornell West because he was the guy who broke my Barack Obama cognitive dissidence. Because I remember there was a lot of debate and a lot of backlash that he took from the Black community. He had a giant beef with Michael Eric Dyson because he called out Barack Obama. And Michael Eric Dyson having the shitload brain that he has, despite his intelligence. He was telling Dr. Cornell West, despite all Barack Obama's crimes and the fact that he's tanked our wealth, he was telling Dr. Cornell West and the black community, oh, you can't be that hard on Barack Obama. He's our first one. So maybe we get this one in. Maybe the next one will be better. Cornell was like, bro, that's stupid. So they had a very public debate. I'll toss it back to the panel.
Well, I just wanted to ask you, Nick, wasn't that with Michael Eric Dyson, Reverend Al Sharpton,
all of them
Tavis Smiley, and Dr. Cornell West? It's like the four of them. And Tavis Smiley and Dr. West were on one side, and then Eric Dyson and Homeboy.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
Yeah, they were really having a debate.
Like this, because I'm willing to accept new information as comes. Because I remember when I used to like Obama and that stuff, I used to be very impressed by Michael A. Jackson. I'm not gonna lie, like he was good at tricking me. And then when I saw him exposed by Dr. Cornell West, I was like, whoa, okay, so this dude, Eric Dyson, got giant flaws. And then I saw that in flaws in other black leaders. So I can't stress enough how much Cornell West had influenced my politics. Because once again, I had a lot of respect for Eric Dyson back when I was a little bit less educated and more liberal minded. So that feud and that struggle that you've seen between Eric Dyson and Dr. Cornell West sums up the divide among elite academia and among black leftist minded people and the black liberals that we call out all the time on the show. But I think that's a very important dynamic to analyze. So I want to bring that up.
Yeah, also, too, Michael Eric Dyson, even during the Black Lives Matter protests after the murder of George Floyd, he would go on like First Take and different type of sports talk shows because they would ask him on to talk about these race relations, mostly because you don't know that during COVID, sports was shut down for 4 months. So after the death of George Floyd, murder of George Floyd, that was the only topic that was going on through mainstream media. So they would bring Michael Eric Dyson on to really talk about these different type of issues. And like Nick said, he would address many of the issues which we all agree with, but his solutions all the time goes towards electoralism and going towards electing Democrats to try to fix the issue, which isn't the best solution at all. So any last comments for you guys at the panel that you want to add to close this out?
Yeah, one thing I was just going to add is also we got to remember that Cornell West heavily supported Bernie Sanders' campaign. And Harvard was not for Bernie Sanders. They would have taken anyone but him. They were not for someone who was telling everybody, yeah, we need to tax the wealthy more, because again, that would affect them because that affects their donors. Cornell West also came out and spoke against Obama multiple times. And, that's like Harvard's golden boy. They love Obama, right? So these are things that we got to pay attention to because, like I said, a lot of these politicians that are in office came from Harvard. They came from Yale. So it's one big social club. And if you're not a part of that club, they find ways to boot you out. So I'm pretty sure Harvard knew that once they denied him tenure, that eventually Cornell West was going to be like, I'm going to leave. I'm out of here. I don't know if they knew he'd respond in the way that he did, which I thought was awesome. But you got to call it out. And I saw a news segment earlier today. They said they reached out to Harvard for a statement and there's no statement.
Absolutely cowardly and absolutely pathetic. So that's all we have to say. And that's actually a great way to close it out. So our next segment we're going to talk to on this FHL Roundtable is we're going to talk about Cuba. And before I give everyone's thoughts on it, I do want to read two articles. They're very brief, so I'll be skimming through them. The first one is written by The Hill. We can actually debunk it and it gives some background. And then we'll read one about the New York Post describing progressive silence really on the issue. Okay, so I'll share this with everyone on the screen. Give me a second. Okay, let's share this. Okay, here we go. Okay, you guys can see this now, right?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so this is an article written by The Hill. It's actually written by Jordan Williams. It says Cuba arrests activists after rare protests. So this is written by The Hill, so you probably are going to understand the scope of which they're investigating this. So it says Cuba has arrested dozens of activists following one of the largest anti-government protests in recent memory. At least 100 protesters, activists, independent journalists have been arrested nationwide since Sunday, Reuters reported, citing exiled rights among Cubalics. Some people were arrested in protest, but others were detained as they tried to leave their home. Amongst those arrested was a leading Cuban dissident who was detained as he tried to attend a protest in the city of Santiago, according to the Associated Press. thousands of people demonstrated across Cuba on Sunday against the government of Miguel Diaz-Canel amid an economic crisis and a spike in COVID-19 infections. Demonstrations took place in Miami's Little Havana neighborhood in solidarity with the protesters of Cuba. Amnesty International said Monday that during Sunday's demonstrations, it received reports of internet blackouts, arbitrary arrests, excessive use of force, including police firing on demonstrators, and reports that there is a long list of missing persons. In a speech on Monday, Diaz-Canel blamed the protests on the United States politics of asphyxiation towards Cuba, a reference to the economic embargo on the island nation. It is, he quotes, "It is not very hypocritical and cynical that you block me and you want to present yourself as the big savior?" The Cuban president said, "Lift the blockade, and then we will see what his people that has achieved an immense social work despite what is practically a war economy is capable of." But President Biden said Monday that the Cuban government has to respect the rights of its citizens. The Cuban people are, he quotes, "The Cuban people are brave, asserting fundamental and universal rights. Those rights including the right of peaceful protest and the right of freely determine their own future and must be respected," Biden says. So I'll share the next one. This next article I believe is important. That's why I want to share it with you. It really gives in detail to how Congress is going after this, especially those in the House Congressional Progressive Caucus, and how they're breaking down this issue as well. So I do want to show this for you guys, and then I'll kick it to the panel. So this article is actually published by New York Post. It's written by Lee Brown. It says Bernie Sanders blames U.S. sanctions for Cuban protests while AOC silent. So I won't share the video because that'll get a copyright claim. But it goes on to say that outspoken socialist AOC remains silent as of early Tuesday about violent protests erupting in Cuba, while Senator Bernie Sanders finally spoke out to blame U.S. sanctions rather than decades of communism dictatorship. Now, I must say, understand the scope of what the New York Post is going with. So all people have the right to protest and live in a democratic society, Sanders tweeted just before midnight Monday of the protests that started Sunday demanding freedom and the removal of President Miguel Diaz-Canel. "I call on the Cuban government to respect opposition rights and refrain from violence," the Democratic Socialists implored of the leader who had called for revolutionaries to take the streets and fight for communism. It's also long past time to end the unilateral U.S. embargo on Cuba, which has only hurt, not helped the Cuban people, Senator Bernie Sanders wrote. Then it goes on to say his message received backlash from many who suggested he was missing the clear message being sent by protesters demanding freedom from the nation's rulers, which viral images are shown, some carrying American flags, a symbol of democracy they sought. Then it goes on to say, "You want to help? Repost the unedited streams coming from the Cuban youth on the island. They're calling for liberty and an end to communism," Miami-based musician Eloy Esquedo replied to Sanders. "As a Cuban, I can tell you the U.S. embargo will have to stay in place until the Castro-Diaz-Canel dictatorship is out of Cuba." Someone named May also tweeted him. "The Cuban people need to support to remove the government." So the article first starts off bringing the intro to it. Then you have some of those who are dissenters. You've heard Bernie Sanders break it down. So then it goes and says AOC was active on Twitter until late Monday, ripping the white supremacy without any mention of Cuba. Other outspoken squad members like Ilhan Omar and Rashida Tlaib also appear to have ignored the protests. It says the far left want to make, this is by Fox News, it says the far left want to make America more like Cuba, but a lot of Cubans apparently want to be more like Americans, Barney says. So I know that was a lot for everyone, but I'll break it down in 3 different ways for everyone on the panel to digest. So let me actually close this off before I actually break it down. So for those on the panel and for me initially, there's 3 parts I want to break this down. What's your initial thoughts on the Cuban protests? Do you feel the right-wing backlash among the Cuban protests, be it in Cuba or be it in the United States, do you feel is warranted? And how do you feel about some of our progressive allies in Congress also being silent about the issue? And how do you feel leftists should react to this as well? So I actually go to Nick first because he ended it. So I'll go Nick first, and then I'll go to Meg, and then Sabby, and then back to JB. So Nick, what are your thoughts?
So despite capitalist propaganda, which is really easy to debunk, by the way, I'm just going to read you guys some facts, because it's very interesting how you have these capitalists who claim they care about Cubans, but they are using this to prop up America. You guys see that? People have American flags at these protests. Now, Cuba has a lower infant mortality rate than America. Cuba has a higher life expectancy than America. Cuba has a higher literacy rate than America. Cuba has free education and universal health care. Now, I'm not a fan of states. I don't apologize for states. I'm just reading the facts, right? And then you had Jen Psaki out of the Biden administration that says communism is a system that has proven not to work and proven to fail. Meanwhile, life expectancy in America continues to drop. We have a homeless population that continues to get out of control. And we live in a system that crashes and fails. I put that in parentheses because this is how it's designed to work. We have a system that crashes every 4 to 7 years. This comes from Professor Richard Wolff. And this lead directly to the massive income inequality right now. And the studies that show income inequality right now is worse than it was during the era of serfdom. But tell me more about how Cuba has failed. So it's funny how you guys think that capitalism is such an inherently better system, but you guys had to put an embargo in order to make that case for a point for you guys. So if you hear anyone like, oh, this is a rebuke of leftism. No, this is a rebuke of U.S. imperialism. Do not let them change the topic on this, period. Because this is a result of the United States constantly meddling in Cuba, and the CIA has a very long history of doing that. The same CIA that a lot of the Democratic Party apparently approves of now. And now to the second part of this question. Why can't AOC and the squad simply just lay that out? They are cowards. They are not ready for this fight. I don't care about being a politician, but if I was, I could not wait for Ted Cruz to try to call me out on this. I could not wait for Ron DeSantis to call me out on this. I would call Tucker Carlson. I will add him on Twitter. If I was AOC, if I was in their position, I will add Tucker Carlson like, yo, invite me on my show and let's talk about Cuba. Let's talk about the history of Cuba. And let me explain to you why you're wrong. What does that say about AOC, who is 100% smarter than me? I'm not saying she's not. She's 100% smarter than me. But AOC is smarter than me, but she can't do that? What is that then? I leave that question to you guys. Because I think if I was in this position, I would thrive in this fight. They are scared to say something right now because they don't want to fight. I'm like, go ahead. Explain to me why your capitalist system works. Explain to me why Cubans send doctors all over the country. They have a great COVID vaccine. They're doing all these great things in the world in healthcare. But explain to you why our system that's continuing to fail Americans. 68,000 die each year. You can't make that argument, AOC? That's pathetic. Once again, the outside game is making that argument. The inside game ducked it.
Well said, Nick. You went off there, man. Everything you said is very valid, very concise, and I agree with that. Agree with you on that. So let's get you in here, Meg. Meg, what are your thoughts on really the Cuba protests? What are your thoughts on really the right-wing backlash from this at all, framing it as a pro-America, pro-democracy protest? And what are your thoughts, too, on the Congressional Progressive Caucus, many of the most prominent leaders like AOC, Ilhan Omar, and Rashida Tlaib being very silent about the issue of Cuba? So what are your thoughts on all those three?
So I'll start by saying that no matter how we feel about what's happening in Cuba, we should always support people who are protesting their nation. That being said, the fact that Biden is even saying like, oh, Cuba should respect the protesters' rights to protest is really rich. That is really rich, considering we barely have freedom of speech in this country right now. We're still trying to extradite Assange for speaking out about U.S. war crimes. We are calling protesters domestic violence extremists and trying to silence dissent. We have censorship going all over the place. We arrest protesters all the time. So what exactly are we trying to speak up for? Like, the fact that Biden is like, it's just rich. The hypocrisy is so disgusting when Like, I'm sorry, Joe Biden, weren't you the vice president when we were shooting water cannons at water protectors at Standing Rock? You know, what is going on here? Like, you do not respect protesters either, so you have absolutely no room to making any type of judgment on the Cuban people and on the Cuban government. And I'm not that familiar with Garcia Canal, but he's absolutely right on the fact that we do need to end the embargo on Cuba. And if Joe Biden really is wanting to continue the Obama legacy, he should be trying to normalize relations with Cuba. If he's really trying to, that's one decent thing that Obama actually did, was normalize relations with Cuba, and Biden should be continuing that. We should be trying to end the embargo in Cuba. And because, as so many people have mentioned in the comments, you know, sanctions and embargoes, those are acts of war. Those are damaging to the economy in Cuba. So it's amazing that they are thriving in so many ways, despite the fact that their economy is suffering because of the embargo, because of the United States embargo. So if we actually want to understand what the hell is happening in Cuba and why the people are protesting against their government, maybe we should start by ending the embargo and getting rid of the sanctions on Cuba in order to help the Cuban people to not suffer. Just because a few people might carry around American flags doesn't mean that every single Cuban person agrees with that. Not like how are you to say that the Cuban people want to end communism or end socialism because a few people are carrying around American flags? That's very anecdotal evidence to support that huge of a claim. Like, where is your evidence to back that up? You don't, and the fact that they're saying this without any evidence, like, have you polled the Cuban people? Do you know if they want to end communism? Because I don't know that. I haven't seen any polling done and taken out of Cuba. I don't know about the rest of you guys. But yeah, the fact that AOC and the squad haven't said anything, I don't know what it is that they stand for. I have no freaking clue what it is that they stand for. And I'm looking at Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez's information here. Like, she worked under Ted Kennedy in the section of Foreign Affairs and Immigration. She has a Bachelor's of Arts degree in International Relations and Economics. The fact that she is not better on these issues, I don't understand. What the hell were you doing studying international? Of course. Thanks, Alex. But the fact that you have a degree in international relations and you cannot speak well on these issues, what the fuck were you doing when you were studying? What were you studying? What were you doing? I don't understand. I don't understand how she's not better on these issues.
Well said there. And we're all dog lovers, so we're not offended by your dog spec. But again, what you said was very valid. We appreciate the insight on that. Let's get Sabrina in here. Sabrina, what are your thoughts on the Cuba protests? What are your thoughts on the right-wing backlash? Those saying that the protesters in Cuba are a direct response towards wanting democracy and being against the government. And what are your thoughts on really progressives at home in the United States that aren't actually standing up or even talking about the issue of Cuba? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, so the moment like this news broke, the first thing I thought was, watch, people on the right are going to say, see, this is why you shouldn't have socialism. And that's exactly what they did. And the fact that mainstream media is not telling you the reason why, the real reason why people are protesting. They're not telling you about the embargoes. They're not telling you that people are like protesting there because they ran out of like COVID vaccines. They're not telling you the whole story. It's appalling and it's dangerous. It's dangerous to spread that information. To Meg's point, like, people who were holding the American flag in Cuba, like, they chose to like put that on the news. Not everybody wants to come to America. And I know that can be hard for some people to believe, but some people want to stay in their country. Not everybody wants to come here and think this is the place where they need to be. So that's something that's important for people to know. And in reference to like progressives here, like not speaking out on it, again, this just doesn't surprise me. With the squad, like I told you, what are they doing? They're not doing anything. They're silent on a lot of the issues that they should be vocal on. And I told Meg this the other night, like, I want a refund. Like, I wish we could get our money back. Like, if we donated to them, like, this is ridiculous. But if they're not going to speak up about these things, they're not going to say anything, then there's really no reason for them to be there. They're being just like all the other politicians. So I didn't expect much from them in reference to like AOC. At this point, she's just a puppet. It's like she's not really like leading anything like she said she would try to do. She's falling in line with the establishment Democrats. And Meg brought up that, she interned with Ted Kennedy. Not a good person to intern with. Ted Kennedy killed a woman. And like, sorry to bring this up again, but a lot of people don't know about that. So it's like, it seems like it's a good thing here because she had like that background at BU with international relations, and she interned with Ted Kennedy. But Ted Kennedy tried to cover. Like I said, he killed a woman, left her there to die, had time to save her. The woman died from suffocation. I want to make this very clear to people. The woman that he killed did not die because of drowning. She died because of suffocation, because she was holding her head above the water and she was trying to breathe. So she sucked all the air out of the car. He knew she was there. He left her there overnight, and he could have saved that woman's life. And then he tried to cover it up. He tried to hide it. That's the person that AOC interned for. So all these people, they're just all players in the same game. And I think just like going forward, like we just can't get our hopes up about these people, like politicians. I don't care if they're grassroots or not. We can't get our hopes up about it. But it is funny that Biden said that the people in Cuba have the right to protest and all that stuff and to be respected. He doesn't even respect us. Like, how are you going to talk about respecting people in another country? You don't respect the people who are in your country. So I just feel like it's just such a hypocrite. It's just ridiculous.
Amazing thoughts there, Sabrina. We appreciate the insight on everything you said. But what you said was valid. So let's get JB in here. JB, you've been quiet long enough. We want to hear the eloquence, the beautiful words that JB Font has to say about this. So, JB, as you prophetically give your commentary, what are your thoughts on really the Cuba protests? What are your thoughts on the right-wing backlash? And what are your thoughts on really progressives in the United States being silent about this issue?
So I don't know a huge amount about Cuba. I'm still learning, just like many of you are, on the ground. And from what I do know about Cuba is that sanctions are violence. And because sanctions are violence, we're committing, this nation, the United States, is committing violence against Cuba. Now, Joe Biden said that the Cuban people have a right to self-determination and to protest in their streets. And I do agree with that. But how is it that you're going to say that when we protest in our streets for self-determination, and then you come down on us, or your predecessor is coming down on us? Cuba right now, from what I understand, is there's about 9 million protesters. 8 million of them are pro-communist protesters, and 1 million are anti-communist. 8-1. So it seems like they are pro-communist government, And from what I'm seeing on the ground from actual people on the ground, is that the Cuban people are pissed because of the US sanctions and embargoes that we still have. We have been at war with Cuba for over 60 years. Embargo is war. I'm sorry. Yes, embargo and sanctions are warfare. So therefore, we have been at war with Cuba for over 60 years. And Cuba is tired. Now, if Cuba, if you think that communism doesn't work and it shouldn't be allowed, okay, let it work on its own. Lift the embargo, lift the sanctions, take them away, and let Cuba fall however it may. But then people are going to say, well, we have to come in there and they're doing bad things to their people. Who said that we have to be the police of the world? Look, Saudi Arabia is doing bad things. Are we going in there to spread democracy to Saudi Arabia? Look what Israel's doing to the Palestinians. Do you see any American soldiers going in there trying to save any Palestinian people? Why in the hell are we doing anything against Cuba? That's very hypocritical of the United States, isn't it? So my thing is, look, lift the embargo and let them run free. And if communism is so bad, it's so terrible, so horrible, let it fall on its own. Let it break under its own weight. But why are you so afraid of it? Because number one, it's one of the closest countries to the United States. It's neighbored just by 80 miles of water. Number two, they speak Spanish, and a huge minority of people here speak Spanish. And number three, those ideas can easily cross over to the United States. And so you guys do not want those type of ideologies and economic practices to come here to the United States because it threatens your power. You don't want it because then if you see Cuba become the bastion of left-wing democracy that it is, and by the way, it is a democracy that actually hold elections, then your power goes away. And by the way, they do have elections there. So the thing is that this whole thing about it being a dictatorship is absolutely wrong. Cubans have actually explained, yeah, we vote in our elections, and we actually have polling and things like that. Yeah. So this whole right-wing backlash, of course they're going to say bad things about Cuba. Of course they are, because it threatens their narrative. If Cuba was to ever not have sanctions. By the way, wasn't it in the United Nations that 143 nations in the United Nations voted to end the sanctions and embargoes on Cuba? There's only two nations that voted against ending the embargoes and sanctions: United States and Israel. So the entire world is on the left side, except for United States and Israel. So what does that tell you? If the whole world can actually see a humanitarian crisis for what it is, then shouldn't that be a reflection upon the United States to see that this government is the one in the wrong? But no, they don't want to see that. Because it's about power and money and having more than the other guy. So I stand with the people of Cuba and continue to keep fighting for your democracy. And if the self-determination of the Cuban people is communism, great, communism.
See, this is why we could always count on JB to speak in prophetic equivalence. I love it. I love it. JP broke that down. I'll get my quick thoughts on this. And in general, my thoughts on this with Cuba is that regardless of what ideology your nation is, if your nation is indeed to be struggling, you're going to have working class people in that country protest because of certain needs and conditions they have that needs to be met. This is not always a direct indictment on a political ideology. So these Cuban people need to stand with them to actually receive the type of benefits and things that they need in their country. Also, at the same time, even the president of Cuba, which we just read in that article, stated that they've done so well in terms of getting their economy where it is, even with COVID, on top of the US embargoes for the last 60 years. But at some point, you meet a wall. And that's what they're talking about, how COVID in general has really expedited the process, made it even more difficult to find goods and services due to a limited economy. And so this is why you need to stand with the Cuban people. And really, if you're a United States citizen, make sure you stand for the Cuban people and call out our own government for its incredible corrupt actions. Now, in terms of the right-wing backlash, this is something you have to expect in the United States. This whole field in the United States about how we could dictate how other countries can respond and controlling other people, this has been a foreign policy mindset since James Monroe. James Monroe was one of the founding fathers. He's the one who created the Monroe Doctrine, in which the United States essentially can control and police the world on any parts of the Western Hemisphere, because the United States deems it's their side to dictate and control. Now, one of the main reasons why throughout American history before that time and kind of made it a little bit less difficult for the United States after the Soviet Union fell, because the Soviet Union being allied with Cuba and many different types of social and communist countries, they were a big direct power check to the United States. But now since the fall of the Soviet Union, and many of these communist and socialist countries getting more less powerful than the United States, now you have even more exacerbated United States influence. So this is why we need to focus on this issue and hone it down. So this right-wing backlash you're going to get, a lot of times in American history, it's the same. It's always going to be the same echo, and many times it's going to be different language, and it's going to intensify. But every action has an opposite or equal reaction. So if we don't come with that same energy and standing with them, their influence is going to be the one that wins out. Now, in terms of the Congressional Progressive Caucus and their action, we shouldn't be surprised by AOC. She aligns herself with people like Juan Guaido, follows them, retweets. Meg mentioned too about how she was brought up into politics, as well as Sabrina, in terms of who she connects herself with, in terms of who she learns from. We know AOC has knowledge on this. She has a degree in this. She's interned for international affairs in terms of foreign policy. So she knows about this, yet she's refusing to do it to uphold her own party status, and many times admitting that I'm just going to go along with the caucus narrative. And that's the biggest problem that we have, is when you have certain progressive Congress people, and this is why we greatly miss Mike Gravel. Rest in peace, Mike Gravel. This is an individual who's continued to call out the bullshit unto his very dying breath. And this is why the younger generation too, and many of those who are middle age or whatever your age is, to actually stand up and really take on the mantle. Because when these big heroes end up leaving, we have to come and fill their place so that we have multiple voices to fight against this type of a system. So that's all I have to say about that. I'll throw it back to you guys. Any last comments, any last thoughts about this Cuba situation that's happened?
So I always laugh at the propaganda. I can go all day on this. But can you imagine, and I always propose this all the time to people, can you imagine the U.S. media reaction if there was a poll in Cuba that was done that showed the vast majority of Cuban people starting to reject communism? What does that sound like? There's polls in America that shows there's a whole generation that's starting to reject capitalism. There's a story. I covered this on my show before. Cuban poll, this from 2015. Cubans are more satisfied with their political system than Americans are. Do they tell you that in the media when they come to this protest? They show the protest. There's like 200 people there. Like, bro, you realize there are protests like that that's bigger in America all the time. So yes, I stand in solidarity with anyone who protests in our government. But what are you protesting your government about? That's the key. Are you asking for a lifting an embargo? There was, and then you got sock puppet accounts. I saw one. This is probably the most funniest tweet. I don't get too much stock because obvious it was a shill.
Did Nick drop?
I think so.
Yeah, that's unusual. Usually it's me.
There he goes. He's back.
I don't know what that was about. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know what that was. They would say, all right, just reload the page. Okay, whatever.
He pulled a Meg.
You still have the floor. Go ahead. You still have the floor.
I see that just threw my whole train of thought off. But I was saying how, like, you have in America, there's polls that constantly come out. They always report on it. How you have Americans that are starting to reject capitalism and starting to prefer socialism. Hey, have they reported on a poll that show Cubans are starting to prefer capitalism over communism? It doesn't exist because I told you guys they have higher life expectancy than us. They have education. They have healthcare. And now there are people that are protesting the condition in their countries, and they're also the people that are smart enough to realize that the solution to this problem is the U.S. embargo. So if you talk about the issue in Cuba, you do not bring up the U.S. embargo, you're being a deeply unserious person. So they were like, "Oh, look at this! Look at all the unrest in Cuba. This means we got to do something." Where's that energy in Colombia? The administration that Biden supports. Where's this energy when we got the Palestinian people protesting the apartheid state? I'm asking for consistency. That's all I'm asking for. I mean, I'm not gonna like jump over hills when I see one protest of 200 people, feel a lot of people who are misled and thinking that the issue of this is a false issue. They blaming communism when this is U.S. embargo. Once again, I can debunk you people all day. Like this is, like the idea that Cuba are protesting their government, so we gotta have the United States come in and save them. Have you read history? When has that worked out? Like, can we be serious? Like I'm looking at the backlash about Black Lives Matter when they released their statement, which was a great statement. It was a great statement because they called out the situation in Cuba, and it's the same situation in other country in Haiti. I just talking about this with Max Blumenthal. The United States is responsible for overthrowing that country and destroying that country through U.S. imperialism. But now they want to pretend they care about the Cuban people. No, this is all about expanding U.S. imperialism, which will only hurt the Cuban people. So and people are like, "Oh, so you're a leftist? You don't support the Cubans that are protesting?" When did I say that? I want to have the conversation with them. Like, yeah, okay, I hear you. I support you. What's your thoughts on the embargo, though? And they say, yeah, let's lift the embargo. We are going somewhere now. But if I'm like, hey, okay, I hear you. Do you believe in lifting the embargo? No. What? Like, they actually were trying to convince people that there are Cubans out there. Like, do the Twitter sock puppet accounts. There are a lot of my friends that are highlighting them. They was obviously fake. They was like, yeah, I'm Cuban. And actually, I don't believe we should lift the embargo. Do anyone believe those are real people? What's the argument? And I put it right to the floor before I end my rant here. And I propose this to anyone who's watching. What's the argument for improving Cuban lives with the embargo in place? Don't worry, I'll wait. I looked at a lot of reactions because I love this shit. I'm a nerd. And I ain't seen no right-wing actual intellectual argument for improving the lives of the Cuban people with the embargo in place.
Yeah, you're right. A lot of right-wingers, they think, socialism bad, communism bad. So regardless of any of the arguments put in place, they're still going to do that. I'll put up a comment that just happened by Ghani Abdul. This is a very important comment because all this entire panel, we talked about really the embargo by the United States against Cuba being so detriment. But the one part this individual added is that it also punishes other nations from trading with Cuba as well. And this includes the United States ally. So how this United States embargo works is that it goes against a country barring not only U.S. trade from Cuba, but any of its allies in any other country. So this is how it really depletes and cripples the economy of Cuba. So that thought we wanted to add there as well, just for important context. Thank you for that comment. Anyone else want to address something before we move on?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's quite clear what all this right-wing backlash is trying to accomplish. And that's that, much like in other nations, they're trying to use what's happening in Cuba right now to go into Cuba. That's what they want to do. They wanted to go into Cuba and they want to overthrow the government. They want to do regime change in Cuba. Just like they want to do regime change in Venezuela. Just like they want to do regime change in Syria. This is the same game over and over and over and over again. And I think we can all agree that we're sick of this game. We have to stop going into other countries and being paternalistic and saying like, oh, we can solve all your problems. We can't even solve our own goddamn problems.
Right.
So, JB, your facial expressions are just classic.
Like
Like that was the perfect
But you're making the point though, and you're saying that we can't be paternalistic throughout this entire world. We have been doing that this entire age of the entire United States, and every single time, people try to self-determine to move to the left to actually do better for themselves. The United States is like a guardrail. Go no. You have to benefit us first, and it's like, and pardon me for saying this, but fuck you, United States. We need to benefit ourselves first.
Right.
So take this embargo off of us. Take these sanctions off of us, man, because we're just trying to do for ourselves. And then you want to police us just because we're doing. And the funny thing is, it boggles the mind. The United States talks shit about other countries, but the same thing that they're doing, but worse.
Right. It's like, I just completely lost my train of thought for like.
I'm sorry.
No. It wasn't your fault. No, it wasn't your fault. It was completely my fault.
I love the point you guys was making though, because I just want there to be intellectual consistency. The same people like Marco Rubio that is going off right now about Cuba. I wish you had that same energy for the homelessness crisis in America.
Right?
People, those right wingers, they say, "Oh, we can't implement communism. We can't support socialism. Those are extreme, authoritarian." Ideologies that strip people of their freedom. Meanwhile, the American have an NSA spying program that's spying on their own citizens. We are the carceral state.
You can be capitalist and authoritarian.
Yeah, we have fucking.
We are capitalist and authoritarian.
We have 25% of the world's prison population, and they were like, "Oh, I see right when you're saying they're like, oh, you can't implement communism because that will strip people of their freedoms." You the one that was going to take stripping people of their freedom. There was just a case where there's a black man. I think it was in Alabama. Sorry if I get the state wrong, but it was one of the southern states where they just upheld his appeal where they gave him life in prison for marijuana. Meanwhile, Derek Chauvin get 20 years for killing him. By the way, but we go to jail for life for our plant. But you want to talk about the Cuban people not free? Oh, the Cuban government need respect the protesters, make sure they don't engage in violence against them. That's what Joe Biden said. Joe Biden like, hey yo, they always say this about states. They're like, oh, you guys need to respect the protesters. Meanwhile, you guys are literally committing war crimes against your own people that protested in George Floyd protests. Where's the poison gas? Where's the poison gas that Cuba is using against their protesters right now? They did it against us. Our state did that against us. So where is that same energy, Marco Rubio? Where's that same energy? When Americans die because they don't have health care. Imagine if there was a stat that showed that 68,000 Cubans died because of their healthcare system. They were like, oh my God, this is an example that socialism and communism doesn't work.
Megan, are your constituents? Where's that outrage, Marco Rubio?
Right?
Yeah.
100%.
Come on, Mark. Come on, Marco, let's go.
But so I can sit here and debunk all the propaganda. I just have I'm having fun watching them melt down because when I see Black Lives Matter put out a statement out there to be 100% serious, that's a good sign. That's a good sign because I had a question with Black Lives Matter. Some things they do, but that's a good statement, and it's a sign that people are starting to reject U.S. imperialism. The fact that you saw the Palestinian marches earlier this year, and the fact that you saw people talk about the issue when you never saw people talk about that before, that's a sign of things are changing because no one cares about foreign policy like that. Now people are. Now we actually have organizations that they're a little bit to the right of me, but even they still call out the issue in Cuba, right? Yeah. I'm seeing it, and it's a generational thing, and that's great to see. So I end on that positive at least. But I can run on this all day. I'll throw it back to the floor.
Okay, so perfectly said. Meg, I believe you had something else to say. Sabby, we haven't heard from you in a while, so I'll go to you, and then after you, we'll switch it up. So Meg, you have the floor again.
Yeah, it's just everything that the United States does is like, okay, yeah, you can have self-actualization, just not like that. No, not like that. Like you have to do a very narrow way that has to be capitalist, that has to be just very, very narrow way of doing things. Even here in the United States, like, oh yeah, you can protest, but not like that. Oh yeah, you can do this, not like that. Like I said, very paternalistic, like just like always on you, like just like big brother, like your parent, just like, yeah, I want to support you, but not like that. You can't do that. So the fact that, and it's very much, do as I say, not as I do. That's the United States. They are determined to be the parent of the world, the police of the world, and say like, you can, you can have freedom, just not like that. That's the United.
Oh, we lost Meg.
Oh no.
Just for a second. Just hold on.
Okay, Meg, we didn't.
I was done. I was done.
All right.
Okay,
that's the United States in a nutshell.
Mhm.
Okay, perfect. Well said, Meg. Sabby, what are your last final thoughts on Cuba?
Oh, just to add to what Meg said, like when people say like, why would you want socialism? Why would you want the government to control everything? And I'm like, but even in America, we're controlled too. I mean, it's like we have capitalism, but they still control what we do. I mean, look, they control our healthcare. Even though people say, well, no, we have the right to choose our healthcare. Nah, not really. Because if you have an employer that doesn't have any type of healthcare insurance, you don't have healthcare. If you lose your job and your insurance is tied to your job, which for most of us it is, you don't have healthcare. So they control that. I mean, they control like the pharma industry. They control all of this stuff. So we don't have a lot of control here either. And I wish more people understood that like how much the government controls right here in America, which is a capitalist country.
Mm-hmm.
Not freedom, it's freedom. DUMB.
Very well said there, Sabby. We appreciate that. I'm actually going to switch it up on you guys. So we're actually going to go to a video, and this next one is about Ben Carson. And Ben Carson was at the CPAC convention. This will be an open floor. I won't call out anyone.
I'm sorry.
Sleepy Ben Carson.
So it will be open. It'll be open for everyone to jump. I won't pick on you, but I do want to play the video first. I'll show you on the screen for everybody. So give me a second on that. And the reason I want to show this is pretty significant. He made some very controversial comments, really about the Black community, which is in the Black family, which is incredibly insulting and completely ridiculous, which why I believe it warrants our attention. So it says on here, first, before I go into it, can you guys see it on the screen?
Yeah.
Just enlarge it.
So it says, Ben Carson suggests Black families were stronger during slavery. So I am going to start this from the beginning.
You said what?
Wait for it.
Okay, so you guys can see this now, right?
Yeah.
What?
Okay, I'll play this from the beginning. It's a 46-second clip. So I'll play this for you guys. And I'll get you guys this reaction. So here we go.
Let the show begin.
When you look at what the Black community has been through, go all the way back to slavery. It was the family, the strong family units, and the faith in God that got people through that. That got people through Jim Crow, through severe segregation, through all the difficulties. But what really had a negative impact was when the government came along and said, there, you poor little thing. I'm going to take care of all your needs, and started implementing policies that were destructive to family formation. Those are the things that have hurt the Black community the most. Well,
okay, so there it is. There has been Carson. So I don't know how I could lay a question out to you, but I'll point out three factors.
Who first?
So in this clip, he is a right-wing evangelical, so he uses that rhetoric. He also uses the rhetoric of being anti-government, and there's also the rhetoric too about the Black community, basically us needing a savior or something, or that we're somehow can't raise families. So I'm gonna kick it to you guys. Jump right into it. What are your guys' thoughts on really this Ben Carson clip, and what he has to say about somehow Black families being better under slavery? So I'm gonna kick it to you guys. Y'all are cracking up already.
Oh my god!
Yeah, I don't know if you guys saw, but I was literally howling laughing while watching this. It's unbelievable. Like, you guys know, I don't really go after Candace Owens, but they're not hurting us. Like, these people are not a threat, bro. Like if you hear Ben Carson talk, no one is being won over by this. I go after black liberals because they're the people that's a threat. Like, these are the people that lead our community off the cliff. But as shown, like, people like Kenneth Owens, they're not moving the needle on the black community. Especially with rhetoric like this. I'm about to hurt some feelings, man. I need Pastor one of y'all because he said some stuff. Man, go ahead, Sad, because I'm about to hurt some feelings, and I gotta be very careful about what I say.
Go ahead.
So,
go, Savvy.
When I saw this video the other day, I made a video about this because Ben Carson, I honestly believe he has been body snatched. I don't know who this current Ben Carson is today, because there's a couple things he said that's like he's being hypocritical for. So he talks about like welfare and things like that. What he's not mentioning as well is that Ben Carson's family also was on the welfare system. His mom was a single mom, and his mom was working, and obviously it wasn't enough income for her to put food on the table, to pay the rent. And so for a period of time, they were on welfare. Now that he has already reaped the benefits of welfare, he doesn't want other people to reap those same benefits, which is pretty hypocritical to me. And it also shows that he's just full of BS. The other thing about Ben Carson, for him to say that during slavery was the time, like back when the Black family unit was the strongest, complete lie. Obviously, the Black family was ripped apart like during slavery. In fact, when people make those comments that, well, there are all these Black kids that don't have fathers, that actually started with slavery, when they took the Black man away from the family and they took the kids away from the mother and sold them to other owners. And then we can go into, the war on drugs later on, which also took the Black man away from the family, right? But the thing is this, Ben Carson is like the Uncle Tom's Uncle Tom. Like this guy, I don't understand how someone who is, a great brain surgeon can be so damn dumb. Like, for him to be convinced to do this, to have these talking points, it's like, it's obviously he's paid, he's getting something out of this, but it's like, he was a freaking like brain surgeon. He doesn't even need the money. So it's like, they pick these people like Candace Owens and like Ben Carson, and they're the token Black people on the right to try to make it seem like, see, Black people can be Republicans too, and they agree with these talking points as well, where some people don't realize that, no, they're not representative of the majority of Black people, and they're usually out of touch with the Black community. So Ben Carson, for me, the fact that he was over the housing, what was it, the housing board? Yeah. So he was in charge of that. He took money. He cut off funds for that, which is crazy considering he benefited from that growing up. So people like him and Candace Owens, these people are just sellouts, man. They don't care about Black people. They're just looking to get money from their next book. They're looking for their next speaking engagement, and they are doing whatever talking points the right wants them to do so that they can get paid for it. But this guy is an absolute moron when it comes to race relations, when it comes to Black history. He's either really dumb about that or he's just pretending to be dumb about it. But nobody should listen to Ben Carson at this point.
Well said, Sally. I love how you went after that. Let's get Megan here. Meg, what's your thoughts on really this Ben Carson clip?
The entire time that I was watching, I was literally just watching it like this, like, what? What did he just say? Maybe Ben Carson should stick to brain surgery because he doesn't really know much about history. Or maybe he should just like read a history book or something, because exactly what Sabrina said, that's not the reality of the situation. Black families were not family units. Like, they didn't get to stick together and endure slavery together and just like hold on to each other to be strong and get through it together. No, families were torn apart. Like, one thing that is constantly said is that, Black women are constantly rejected of their motherhood. And it started all the way back in slavery. Their children were ripped from their arms and sold to other people. Children living without knowing who the hell their parents are. because they're on some other plantation. So Ben Carson doesn't know jack shit about what he's talking about. Much of the Black community was created by them coming together in solidarity, not in building their own families based on that solidarity, because a lot of them didn't know who the hell where their parents were, who they had no idea. So to say, oh yeah, they got through it with family units, fuck no! You have lost your goddamn mind. And to say that somehow they were better underneath that system, I have no other words for that. Like, the guy is just a complete psychopath. Excellently, as Abby said, he is the Uncle Tom's Uncle Tom. I love what one commenter said, he's Uncle Ben. He's Uncle Ben.
Well said there, Meg. JB, give us the gospel. We want to hear you go into it prophetically, eloquently, righteous rage against Ben Carson. Meg, hit us with your thoughts.
So I'm channeling all my ancestors right now to say this. If we were back in slavery days, Ben Carson would be the field Negro that's trying to get into the big house. Okay? Look, for what he said, number one, was historically inaccurate. And peep this. Ben Carson is the same age as my mother. Ben Carson is about to be 70 years old this year. For him, as educated as he is, to say that our families were more together during slavery is a complete rewriting of history in the book of white supremacy. The coonery of it all. This guy decides that, oh, we will be better off. He's basically saying, hey, massa, wouldn't it be better if we just were slaves again? That's what Ben Carson is saying. A brain surgeon. You might as well should be playing the fiddle. Well, falling asleep too while doing it. Because look, you're saying, oh, will we be better off? You will be out in the field picking cotton or tobacco right now. Dude, do you know what you're saying? And the fact is, and this is serious, this is a former, I think it was HUD secretary, I think he was, if I'm correct. Correct me if I'm wrong.
You're right.
Yeah, okay. A secretary of HUD and a government official saying something like this is extremely dangerous. Because now you're going to get the white supremacists going, see, you guys were better off back when you were slaves, blah, 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 blah. It's like, no, get the fuck out of here. Look, words like that are dangerous. And Ben Carson, he needs to be debunked and debunked quickly and efficiently. Because saying things like that is just going to rile up the Candace Owens and all these other Jesse Lee Petersons and all these other black white supremacists, because ultimately for them, it's all about money. He's selling his people out for money. Because let me ask you this, how much did he get paid for that speech, for that interview? He's selling us out. So, I mean, look, I all I got to say is the dude on the cream of wheat box needs to shut his mouth, and he needs to read up some history, just like what Meg said, because that's absolutely inaccurate. And the fact is that our slave families were ripped apart. They were sold. The babies were cut out of women and then sold off. And then if you were a man, you were sold off. If you were starting to go through puberty, you were sold into another camp, so you couldn't be around your parents anymore. There was a whole lot of horrific things done. I'm not even covering some of the most horrific things, but there's some horrific things done in slavery. And the fact is, they're still being done. How many of us black men living today have seen either in our own families or in our friends' families an absent father because he's in jail or in prison? For what? Drugs. So the thing is that the same thing that was happening 400, 300, 200 years ago is still happening today. So Ben Carson has absolutely no room to talk because it's still going on. And he's still perpetuating that white supremacist institution, which keeps black families from being together. So he has no room to talk. And plus, was his daddy in his life? What happened? I don't know what happened. And I feel bad that his daddy wasn't in his life. But the thing is guess what? The whole thing with, oh my God, welfare, that saved his life. So he's biting the hand that feeds him as well. He's just ungrateful for the things that actually helps people as far as, social welfare programs. Sickens me.
You said the guy on the cream of wheat box.
I need to chime in here now because I actually did not see that video until we just watched it. You guys got my live reaction. That's why I was like cracking up because I remember you said we would pull a bench girl thing. Like, all right, this is gonna be just a typical. That was insane and very, very funny. And that is exactly why I told you guys I am not scared of black conservatives at all. Like, that's why you don't see me talk about Candace Owens, Ben Carson often. These people are not moving the needle. Why did I say that? There was just a poll. I reported this on my show where that shows that American people are rejecting capitalism in record numbers, and they are starting to support socialism. And black people was leading the charge. So it's black Americans, especially young black Americans, that are starting to reject capitalism. So where you at, Candace? You losing. Why don't people you're losing? You're not the black community is going left. We are supporting defund the police. I reported multiple times. 3 out of 4 black Americans support defund the police. Where you at, Ben? Where you at, Candace? Where you at, black conservatives? You guys lose. This is why I go after the black liberals, though, because the black liberals are a threat. They efficiently sell us out to the police state and sell us out to capitalism. Now, I talked to black conservatives. I got a surprising amount of black MAGA people who follow me because I bash Democrats, and I bash Democrats from a pro-black perspective. But then I'm just asking them about Republicans. Bro, what you selling does not make sense. Now, this is a relevant story. I'll try not to go too long here, because when I was canvassing in South Carolina, I talked to a black conservative. My friend Becky was there. It was hilarious. It was great. It was a great conversation. And the reason I'm bringing this up, because this is the same argument that Ben Carson is using, and the same argument that Candace Owens is using, which is extremely easy to debunk, because they say, "Oh, we got to support conservative policies because we are supportive of a strong black family unit." And because of Democratic Party politics, and because of the policies of liberals and leftism, this is what destroyed the black family. This is what black conservatives will have you believe. This is the argument they made. This is the argument that the black guy I was talking to in South Carolina made. So I was very calm. He was a great guy to talk to. Well, I said, okay, let me analyze your objection here. Your objection is that the reason why you don't like Democrats and the reason why you don't like liberals is because you believe they do not support family values. Okay, what is more family values than having a 4-day work week? So so the black father you claim is absent is able to spend time with their family. What's more pro-family values than supporting healthcare so families don't go bankrupt? So your neighbor, your aunt, your brother and sister have healthcare. What's more pro-family value than actually having paid maternity leave so black mothers can be there with their family, black fathers can be there with their family? and that Sabrina touched on this as well. But this is the myth of the absent black father. My dad wanted to be there, but he was working 2 jobs. There was other dads who wanted to be there, but was institutionalized by the crime bill. It's a myth because our system failed black families. So if you're working right now, you got to work 2-3 jobs. My mom had to get an extra job to help support us. Do you think someone has the energy to be an effective parent after working 60 hours a week? They work a 12-hour shift. They get home, and you guys know how Amazon, for example, just one example, how hard they work their employees. You think someone working a 12-hour shift at Amazon, living in poverty, so they're not able to get good food, they wind up with stress, then they come home after a long day, you think they're going to be an effective parent? And the good thing to show the resilience of Black Americans and other poor families, we try, despite all the trials and tribulation on our side. So I talked to this Black conservative, and I outlined these down like, okay, where the pro-family? I just asked him, where the pro-family policies the Republicans are advocating for? Crickets. He planted the seed. I did not convert that guy to Bernie, but he said he agrees with everything. He said, yeah, you making good points. You make good points, and that's how you move the needle. I talked to once again. I got a surprising amount of Black conservative that support me. So I'm like, okay, you're a conservative. You believe in small government. Why are you supportive of giant police budgets? I put them on the spot. What you're saying does not make sense. This is why they're easy to talk to. And a lot of people get upset at my rhetoric. Like the people who love to tone police Black people, the Suki moms, for example. Oh, your rhetoric is harsh. I promise you, bro. I promise you, boo-boo, that I have converted more Black people to the left than all you and your friends easily. Why I do that? Tough love. And I know how to talk to Black people. I know how to talk to Black conservatives. I know how to talk to Black liberals. And I know how to get them to readjust their thinking and get them off the plantation. Oh, that's the mean rhetoric. So what? We can deal with it. So one last thing. I don't know if I should say this part. This part a little bit more controversial. This part is really controversial. I said I might hurt some feelings because I wanted to go back to Ben Carson's statement. I'm going to hurt some feelings here. The family unit was stronger under slavery, and he brought up Christian values. Sorry, guys, I might hurt some feelings. Why do you think we were slaves in the first place? Our ancestors wasn't Christian. I don't talk about religion a lot because I know I can hurt people's feelings on this. But a lot of people ask me, "Oh, Nick, why aren't you a Christian? Why be a religion our ancestors were forced to convert to?" I'm gonna end it there because I'm not gonna hurt any people's feelings. I don't talk about religion a lot. But to me, never really makes sense to me. So how are you gonna? I don't know. I gotta drop it there because once again, I can hurt some feelings when it comes to this. But it never made no sense. Our ancestors were colonized and forced to convert under the threat of death. The threat of death. And then they became Christians, and then Christianity was used to justify the slavery. Our slaves were like, oh, yo, if you be a good slave to the master, you go to heaven. I'm sorry if I hurt your feelings if you're a Christian, but what am I saying is wrong?
Hey,
I ended there. I don't want to go. I don't talk about religion. You guys watch my show. I don't bring it up a lot. But since we talking about Ben Carson, what he said is relevant, so I ended there. Like that doesn't make sense to me. For you to be to act like slavery is good for families. Oh well, okay, whatever. Judeo-Christian values are good. Like, what the fuck? Judeo-Christian values. I'm gonna end it with it. Judeo-Christian values is not great for Black Americans for many different reasons. Anyway, go on. I'll pass it. I'm getting hella controversial. But when I saw that was my eyebrows really raised.
Yeah, I mean,
you mean the same Christians that was sided with the KKK? The KKK used religious justifications to go after Black people. The KKK was a Christian group. White supremacy is based on Christianity. Sorry, I'm getting offensive. But hey, I don't talk about religion a lot. So this is my one time. I have Black people. Like my family is great. And I'll pass it right to you, RJ. Sorry. My family is really religious. They didn't push religion on me, which is great because whenever someone tried, it didn't go well. I'm like, bro, why are you a Black Christian? Do you know what happened to our ancestors? Anyway, sorry. Go back to you, RJ. I know I pissed a lot of people off probably, but That's just my. I don't go after people for their religion, but since we're on the topic, I had to be real with you guys. Go ahead, RJ.
Hey, what you said there was pretty valid, and what people don't realize too is that even during Jim Crow and during really the harshest time periods before Reconstruction, after Reconstruction, the Black Codes, Jim Crow 2.0, the Bible, Christianity was referenced a lot to why Black people couldn't have certain things. One of the biggest racist people in the South and in the North would quote the Bible as justification for the treatment of Black people. So you could see why so many people who aren't religious could have those type of critiques. So I want to say those are valid. Now, to give my quick thoughts on really this Ben Carson video, I just referenced there one of the biggest, I would say, right-wing religious arguments of why the Black family isn't so good. Of course, Ben Carson is going to say that. He is really saying the exact same thing that Candace Owens also has been saying as well. It's in reference to welfare, all her statements about that. This isn't surprising from a guy like Ben Carson. This is kind of what he does. This is kind of what he says. And to be completely hypocritical about this is pretty concerning. So my initial reaction to that Ben Carson quip is like, you motherfucker, how could you even do that? And so that's all I got to say. But I really agree with what everyone else has said on the panel so far. I co-sign what you guys have said. And any other comments or reactions you guys want to give before we get into our last segment here?
And let me say this, because I that's a nuance. I talked to Dr. Cornell West on my show, and he quote his religion a lot. And I said it multiple times. If you had Christians with the mindset of Dr. Cornell West, the way he applies his Christianity is beautiful. It's beautiful. I have no problem with that at all. In fact, he uses religion the way, like he uses religion in such a positive way. Like, damn, I see the goddamn merits in that. But the reason why I'm a little bit aggressive in my rhetoric here, because growing up, what frustrated me, and a lot of liberals don't talk about this, one of the leading instruments in blocking gay marriage in California, for example, was the Black church. I ended there. So there is great ways you can apply your religion. I don't hate you for that. Dr. Cornel West is a great example. But if you are a part of any Black coalition that block gay marriage is anti-gay and use your religion to enforce this unnecessary authoritarian, I got no sympathy for you. So these are the people I have to have harsh rhetoric for them. But yeah. I ended there because I think that's pretty nuanced.
Yeah, the notion that somehow slavery helped the Black family, like it was forced encampments. Families were ripped apart. Yeah. So that's why Ben Carson is completely idiotic about that. So any last comments for you guys?
Mm-hmm. The guy on the cream of wheat bar. JB.
But once again,
you're not going to let this go, are you?
I can't unsee it now.
He's Uncle Ben.
Yep.
But seriously, Jay, those facial expressions are gold. It's like zoom right in.
Okay, that was pretty funny. So for the last 15 minutes, I do want to go through like a pretty much a power segment going on through here. And this next segment that I want all of us to talk about is really about the effects of social media, as well as including big tech, which is kind of the same thing. But to put this on the screen, this is also something that Donald Trump is planning on doing. And just to preface this, he could have done this before he left office, but it's pretty significant why he's doing it now. So I'm going to put this on the screen for you guys. I'll read a couple minutes of it. So you guys can see this now, right? Okay, perfect.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so it says Trump to sue Facebook, Twitter, and Google over alleged censorship, says they've ceased to be private. So it goes on to say here, former President Donald Trump on Wednesday announced that he would lead a lawsuit over alleged censorship against Twitter, Facebook, and Google, three tech companies that have removed him from their platforms after the January 6th attack on the Capitol by a mob of his supporters. So it says the lawsuit will be a class action with Trump as the lead plaintiff, claiming that he has been censored by the companies. He spoke about the legal action from his golf club in Bedminster, New Jersey. Trump says, I stand before you this morning to announce a very important development for our freedom and freedom of speech. In conjunction with the America First Policy Institute, I'm filing as the lead class action representative a major class action lawsuit against the big tech giants, including Facebook, Google, and Twitter, as well as their CEOs. There's no better evidence that big tech is out of control than the fact that they banned the sitting president of the United States earlier this year. If they can do it to me, they can do it to anyone. Twitter, YouTube, and Facebook each barred Trump over his false claims that the presidential election was stolen, alleging that he contributed to the violence of the Capitol at the Capitol on January 6th. YouTube is owned by Google. That's just for extra reference. After close review of recent tweets from @Donald Trump's account and the context around them, specifically how they're being received and interpreted on and off Twitter, we have permanently suspended the account due to risk of further incitement of violence. So Twitter wrote in a blog post about its election. But Republicans and Trump himself have maintained that companies are unfairly censoring conservatives, pointing to international dictators who could still post on Twitter. Trump said the lawsuit will be filed in the Southern District of Florida, seeking injunctive relief against shameful censorship of the American people. There were 3 separate complaints filed in Miami federal court under Trump's name Wednesday, one against each of the social media giants. That's once again Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. While the social media companies are officially private entities, in recent years they have ceased to be private with the enactment and their historical use of Section 230, which profoundly protects them from liability. It is in effect a massive government subsidy. These companies have been co-opted, coerced, and weaponized by government actors to become the enforcers of illegal and unconstitutional leadership. That entire statement was by former President Donald Trump, just for context. And so Trump called the social media companies the de facto censorship arm of the US government. He goes on to say this was especially clear during the pandemic, citing policies against contradicting health experts and the fact that these companies suppressed information alleging that the coronavirus originated in the Wuhan Institute of Virology. So like there was this big talk back then about how like coronavirus was made in a lab that was censored by the press a lot. So that's what Trump was referencing there. It goes on to say too, that the government cannot wave a wand and say you're public now. The idea that this is a subsidy that is nowhere near the truth. And finally, government pressuring companies or companies taking cues from government entities also does not magically turn them into government actors. So it kind of just goes on there, and actually that's actually a perfect way to stop. So I'll flip it back to you guys actually. So this is actually something important that's going on with the right now, especially the left, in terms of First Amendment rights, in terms of censorship by these big tech companies. So the first questions for you guys is that how do you feel about Trump going after this after he left office when he was at his most powerful, when he could have done this in office? Two, are there any merits to what Trump said valid in terms of the critiques, regardless of how you feel about him on his politics? And third, what's your initial reaction to this new thing? And I'll open up to you guys.
So to be clear, Trump is 100% right about big tech censorship. And before you got, I know what a lot of reactionary people say, oh, you agree with Trump? Bernie Sanders agreed. Bernie Sanders himself said he didn't agree with Trump being banned on Twitter. And it's disgusting to me because I see people, I would call them maybe liberals who co-opt leftist language, because that's the only way I can accurately describe them. I see people that cheer on the Trump censorship and they call themselves leftists. Imagine being to the right of Bernie in 2021. What? How you gonna let Bernie Sanders outflank you on this issue? The guy who believed that Joe Biden is his good friend. You gonna let him outflank you? I told you guys when Bernie Sanders dropped out, I doubled down and shifted to the left. Imagine allowing Bernie Sanders to outflank you on this issue. Now, what I like to do, I like to reframe the issue. Trump may have legitimate concerns, but fuck him. Fuck him. You know who's this really gonna hurt? Lefties. They was using this same justification to take down anti-war pages on Twitter and Facebook. So who do you think this is gonna be aimed after? Our channel will get suppressed as hell because they only want to promote authoritarian news sources. And liberals cheer that on because they still got Russiagate in the brain. Oh, we can't have Russian disinformation flowing around, so we got to be supportive of the unelected oligarchs. They all love these people. You should not be cheering social media censorship because obviously they was going to go after us. And they are. I know anyone got I can go on there. Anyone got anything else to add? I got a lot to say about this because liberalism, the whole idea of liberalism is supposed to be about freedom of thought and freedom of expression. Those same people are against that now. They want to suppress information. There's some things that people say I don't agree with. But I'm not saying you say you can't report on some of these things that some of the people who got questions about the jab have. I don't agree with a lot of these things that they're saying. But you tell me they don't have the right to say it? And then you have Twitter and Facebook who moderate how the information is going to be shared. Do you guys understand the long-term consequences of this? So are you guys telling me you want billionaire capitalist oligarchs to control the flow of information? Now, this is why I tell the right wing, fuck you. Fuck you. Because they don't stand up for lefties when we get deplatformed. When Ben Shapiro, when you see any of these people come out like, oh, yo, there's anti-war page getting taken down. Fuck you. I'm not speaking on your behalf. I'm speaking on behalf of the left. Because they're going to come after us. And if you're not honest about this, you've been misled and you've been unbelievably dishonest. So the right wing, they be like, oh, this is a big problem. What's your solution? Trump, what's your solution? Because there's clear solutions to this problem. Mm-hmm. The solution to this problem is nationalizing these institutions. Do you believe in that? A right-winger who complaining about social media censorship. Do you believe that we should nationalize Twitter or Facebook and Google? If you don't believe that, you have no right to complain. The reason why I believe we should nationalize these institutions, because if you have a private company, honestly, you should be able to do whatever you want. But these companies have so much power that they control the flow of information. You can't have a business without having Facebook or Twitter. Just like you couldn't have a business if you didn't have a phone a few decades ago. So it's so important that we have to nationalize these industries. So if you're a conservative, if you're Trump, and you complaining about this, but your solution to the problem is not nationalizing this, you're just being a bitch. You're just complaining. That's why that's why I redirect it. I'm like, oh, let's talk about the lefties that get censored. Fuck Trump. I don't got no sympathy for him because he don't got the right solution. I will publicly announce the fact that he shouldn't be deplatformed, but that's it. I'm not gonna cry over this motherfucker. I'm crying over the people who are censored. I'll open back to the floor, but lefties have not stand up for free speech as a principle, even on issues like Julian Assange, Stephen Dozinger, for example. If that's not one of your top priorities, you need to become serious. You're deeply unserious because the left needs to start taking the state authoritarian power grab seriously. We need to be militant on First Amendment, Second Amendment, Fourth Amendment, because these are the things our government actively trying to steal from us. Meanwhile, I pass it back to you guys.
All right, Sabby, let's get your thoughts, Sabby, on really this big tech issue. You see Trump put out a lawsuit claiming really censorship as well. So what are your thoughts on this situation as well as the fight for the freedom of speech and to protect the First Amendment overall?
Yeah, well, one and foremost, like Trump's only like coming out against this because it affected him directly. I just want to make that very clear. It's not like Trump really cares about all of it. It's because he was affected by it directly. But this is why I'm anti-censorship. And I say that because when Trump got kicked off Twitter, a lot of people were cheering and happy. And then I think it was like a week or two after that, when I saw the videos, the notifications from people on Twitter saying that they demonetized like all those YouTube channels. It was Franco came out, Combo Couch, Jamal Thomas, for whatever reason. I'm not sure how he got on that list, but they all got the same email at the same day at the same time. And so it was just to show you that it was only a matter of time where they weren't just going to apply this to the right. They were going to apply it to the left too. So this is the thing about it. Like, if you don't like what people have to say, if you are offended by it, if you disagree with it, don't watch it. Just don't watch it. Like, I mean, there are things that like bother me. Like, I don't like a lot of gory like stuff, especially if I'm eating dinner or whatever. So I just don't watch it. Like, just turn it off. But Facebook has gotten to the point now where they're trying to like censor what people put up. Twitter's been doing the same thing too. And it's just like, You guys got to understand how much control these companies have over our lives, our everyday lives. I mean, Google is telling me where I went and where I'm going, like where I've been, like just like on my phone. And so then you have Google is connected to YouTube, right? So you got to understand how massive that platform is. Google's the largest search engine in the world, not even in this country, but in the world. So whatever you see on Google is going to be connected to YouTube. And I've said this a long time ago, Google and YouTube, someone needs to break that up first. Because this is why it's harder for, I'm going into another thing here, but this is why it's harder for other platforms, the newer platforms that are coming out, like Panquake, Odyssey, Rockfin. This is why it's harder for them to gain more traction, because they don't have that connection to Google like YouTube does. So if you're connected to the #1 search engine in the world, you're like up here and your competitors are so far behind you, even though their platform could be even better. So someone needs to definitely break that up. And in reference to censorship, like, I don't care. Like, whatever people say, whatever they do, if I disagree with it, I can disagree with it, and I choose not to watch it. But this is why we have to be 100% anti-censorship.
Perfectly well said, Savvy. Let's get Meg in here. Meg, what are your thoughts on really the situation with Trump trying to sue the social media companies over freedom of over suppression, and what are your thoughts on how this affects freedom of speech overall?
I mean, you kind of, I had to kind of agree with what Zabby said. Like, he's obviously doing this for himself. He doesn't, like, he stomped on our free speech throughout his presidency. He doesn't give a shit about our free speech. It's all about him. So let's just be clear on that. But that doesn't mean he's wrong. He is right to be going after Facebook, Twitter, and Google. Like, this is not something that he's wrong on. And yeah, it might be nice that Trump's not on Twitter and to have all that chaos every single day. Sure, it might be nice, but guess what? That's not freedom. If you actually want freedom of speech, then you have to take all speech. Like, I'm very much a free speech absolutist. And what Nick said was right, that it's usually a principle of liberalism that we believe in free speech. Like, it's always been a principle of liberalism that, you know, I may not agree with what you say, but I will back up your right to say it every minute of every day. And I still stand by that. And we need to be instead of fighting bad speech with censorship, we should be fighting it with better speech. And that's actually, I'm going to recommend a book right now to you guys. This is by Nadine Strossen, who was a former head of the ACLU. It's called Hate: Why We Should Resist It with Free Speech, Not Censorship. Because you can't defeat hate just by censoring it, because it's just going to find other ways of getting out. Whether it's through violence, whether it's through other platforms, that hate will still be there. You can't silence it by just saying, no, you can't say that. You need to educate why that thing is wrong. You have to be willing to explain why that point is wrong and get rid of the hate that way. We can't just silence it. You just can't do it. The only way that we can do it is by promoting other things, by telling people this is why you're wrong and hoping that it gets better. Like, I will always be a free speech absolutist, and I believe that these platforms, I definitely agree with Savvy that these platforms should be broken up. Facebook should not have ownership of WhatsApp and Instagram and all these other platforms. Google should not be connected to YouTube. We need to break these tech giants up. We have to do it. And if we're not going to do that, they need to become public utilities. They need to be regulated like public utilities so that we can have some kind of system of accountability. Because we can't have private organizations deciding what we're allowed to say and what we can't. If you believe in the principle of free speech, then you believe that. We cannot have corporations telling us what we can say and what we can't. If they're going to be doing that, then they need to be regulated like public utilities. That way that we have some kind of system of accountability. And so definitely, though, even with the ACLU, even though I recommended that book from a former director of the ACLU, even the ACLU, who has always been at the forefront of free speech, who, they defended the KKK walking in a Jewish neighborhood. But now even they're, deciding, oh, maybe we shouldn't be defending free speech on such a, no, that is your job. Even the ACLU is self-censoring now. What the fuck? This is what is going to continue to happen, particularly when we see what's happening to Assange and other free speech activists. If this is a crisis, if we do not have free speech, we can't defend anything that we support. If we do not have free speech, we're all going to be domestic violence extremists. We're all going to be considered domestic violence extremists, guys. We have to be defending free speech at every single fucking turn.
Perfectly well said there, Meg. I want to thank those who give us super chats. Thank you to Carrie R. Matthews for the super chat, as well as thank you to Eric Thomas for the super chat as well. JB, your last one on the block for today. What are your thoughts on the whole big tech situation before we wrap up?
Okay. Yeah, I noticed we have 5 minutes. So I'm going to make it really quick. A broken clock is right twice a day. So Trump is actually correct on this. And the fact is that, and I agree with the rest of the panel here, that we should either break up all these different tech companies, or we should be having it nationalized. And so I think it should be nationalized. The reason why is because these websites should be treated like roads, right? You don't have to go down a road that you don't want to in the United States, especially roads, are paid through taxation, and, you have different interstates and whatnot. You don't have to pay for those. So then if you don't want to go down them, you don't, but they have certain rules they have to follow, and in order to be there, just like certain businesses have certain rules to follow in order for them to exist on that road. So, yeah, I think that unfortunately there is some horrible speech out there, but they're going to come after us on the left, and they have come after us on the left. Right now, we're being suppressed right now. Hell, we're probably even demonetized right now. So these super chats that you guys are giving us are helping out a hell of a lot more. So just, letting you guys know that censorship only is a dragnet for the left. They use the boogeyman of Trump to come after us. That's all I got to say.
Well said, JB. Thank you for that. JB, while you were just talking, give us some plugs, any work that you're doing that's next coming up.
Oh my gosh, I forgot his name. Oh my goodness, I have an interview. Stay tuned on Sunday at 1:00 Eastern Standard Time on Sunday. I actually have an interview with another lefty. I forgot his tag handle, so I apologize to him for that. Also, next was today. Yeah, the 22nd. Next Thursday, we're going to have at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time a disability roundtable where I take myself as well as many other people who are disabled. We're going to be talking about that and intersecting that with the Medicare for All March happening a couple of days later. So stay tuned for that. We'll be doing that at 7 p.m. Thursday, Eastern Standard Time.
Perfect. Meg, any plugs for us?
Yeah, love that, JB. Can't wait for that. You can find me every Monday on Nerdolitics with Jackie at 1 p.m. Pacific, 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. You can also find my new podcast, The Killjoy Guide, on Anchor, on YouTube, and on FHL. I just released a primer on what is feminism, and should be releasing my interview with Savage Joy about being a disabled woman and about the March for Medicare for All. So stay tuned for that. That should be coming out probably tomorrow.
Perfect. Sabby, what do you have coming up on the block?
Yeah, tomorrow I'm going to be doing a Medicare for All discussion on my channel on Sabby Sabs, and then on FHL I'm going to do a discussion about the military industrial complex and how they purposely recruit underrepresented minorities, especially people from lower income communities. I'll talk about like my dad's experience with that. And then on Tuesday, I'm going to interview Kip from Hardlands Media on Sabby Sabs.
Perfect. Nick, what do you have up on the block for us? Nick, you're muted.
Thank you everyone for watching. Please support us on Ko-fi. Go to fredhamptonletters.com. I do have a pretty exciting announcement. We have Brianna Joy Gray maybe on Saturday. If not Saturday, it'll be sometime next week. So check that out. I'm very excited about that.
Okay, as for me, we have exciting announcement to make. Sabby and I co-hosted an interview with Irami Osei Frimpong. He is the funky academic. You've probably seen him and heard him on Bad Faith, as well as being on Crystal and Saga's show when they were on at the Hill. So check that out. That'll be released Sunday at 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Also, check me out on Friday. I'll be interviewing with Nick. He'll be co-hosting me for the first hour of my show, Revolutionary Jargon, at 6 p.m. We'll be talking with the Black progressive who is debunking Jim Clyburn at his own town hall. He's coming on the show. So we'll be talking with him, having a great discussion. Check that out. And I'll be doing multiple articles afterwards. So we have a lot of things on the plot for us. Thank you for checking us out at FHL. We appreciate you guys. We appreciate the super chats. We appreciate the support. We appreciate you guys shouting us out and sticking with us. We love you and appreciate you. That's all we have to say. And so with this, check us out next week, next Thursday. This has been the Fred Hampton Leftist Network, the FHL Roundtable. We are signing out. Peace out, guys.
Yeah.